This is the Alden Report.
Hey, it's Mike Alden. Listen, before we get into this next episode of the Alden Report, I want to tell you about a company and a service that I believe can take your company to the next level. And that company is Penji, P-E-N-J-I. Penji is an unlimited design service that connects you with the top 2% of graphic designers in the world. You can get creative output like as if you had an internal team, but without that additional overhead cost. Look, if you want things like logos to flyers to digital art, even UX and UI, Penji is the company for you. I know because I've used them. Look, if you're the person within your company that's doing all the graphic design work, or maybe you even have a team and you're overwhelmed and you want to outsource it to a company that you know you can trust. Look, we know all these other services out there. Penji is like no other graphic design service that I've ever seen, and I've used them, and I highly recommend going to Penji.co. Because you're a listener and a subscriber of the Alden Report, you can actually get 15% off of your first month with Penji. It's really, really simple. Go to Penji.co, enter in the code Alden15, and you'll get 15% off of your first month. Listen, if you want things like logos, custom illustrations, even a website, and you want it all under one plan that's not going to lock you in forever, then visit Penji.co, and when you sign up, make sure you enter the code Alden15. Once you submit your order, it's really, really simple. Here's the thing. They get your custom designs back to you within 48 hours or less. So go on and visit Penji.co and enter in the code Alden15. That's Penji.co and enter in the code Alden15.
This is the Alden Report.
All right. Well, my name is Mike Alden. We are here in Blue Vase Studios, and I'm rocking the sunglasses like I always rock. I'm a little dressed up too. The backdrop's looking kind of fresh. Everything's a little bit different. I'm super excited for my next guest. She is a serial entrepreneur. She's been in Inc. magazine. She's been in Wall Street Journal, USA Today. Her company has been recognized by Inc. multiple times, generated millions of dollars. She's also a singer, songwriter. Her background is just really, really, really interesting. She's been doing some great things. She's an author. She's got a book coming out. We met on this amazing app called Clubhouse, and we've just connected in a way that I think that there's really no other way to describe it. I feel like we've become close friends literally almost like overnight because of who we are and what we're doing. Please help me welcome Natasha Miller. Natasha, thanks so much for being my guest.
Thanks so much for being my new really good friend, like genuine, authentic, really good friend.
And I want to also thank you for wearing your glasses. I feel like I'm all dressed up right now. You thought that I actually, was dressed up for somebody else. I got dressed up for you because you're awesome. And also, I just kind of want to see what it looked like a little bit with the glasses. So here we are rocking our mutual sunglasses, and I appreciate you being here and spending the time where I'm in Boston. I think you're in San Francisco, right?
Oakland, San Francisco Bay Area. Our future is so bright. We have to wear shades.
Oh, there it is. See, I knew you would come up with something cool like that. And when you said Oakland, the first thing I thought of Oakland was too short. Isn't Oakland isn't too short from? Yeah. I'm a big, I think I'm a big old school hip hop fan. All right, so she's switching the glasses. So, so you have a really interesting background. You've like a lot of entrepreneurs. You've been through hell and back, especially last year for you. I know it was brutal for you. But I want to kind of maybe just back up and let's start with your the whole music career thing, because you and I haven't even really talked too much about this. I don't even know how it started. How does one become a singer who has performed in front of tens of thousands of people, has performed at stadiums, who's got multiple albums out? How does that whole thing start? When do you figure out that you could sing and you're a performer? I'd love to just hear that story. If we could start there.
Yeah. So my dad played the piano. He would come home from work every day and go straight up to the piano room and play until dinner was ready. And I would go up as a little tot and I'd reach up to the keys and plink around. And I learned to play by ear from hanging out with him. And I always sang. It was really the most expressive thing that I could do. Some people roller skate or skateboard or paint or whatever. And I sang. This is how I really got my feelings and my emotions out. And then in fourth grade, I picked up the violin, and really the violin, classical violin, is what pulled me through high school, junior high, high school, full ride scholarships to colleges, 3 different colleges.
Wait, hold on. I got to stop you there. I got to back up for a second. Okay. So my grandfather was a performer, musician. He could play a bunch of different instruments. I don't think anyone in my family, and my mom and anyone else, but like, okay, so you're that young, you start singing and playing these instruments. At what point though, because look, there are a lot of talented musicians out there, a lot of talented singers out there, but there aren't many singers that actually take it to the next level, that actually get contracts, that create albums, that go to college. Like, when was it your family or was it you? Like, how did you realize that, hey, you know what, music is definitely not only a passion, but I think it's going to take me somewhere?
It was the only thing that I was ever going to do, period, hard stop. That was it. I was put on this earth, I thought, to be a performer, to be a classical violinist, and to be a vocalist. That was it. That's all I was going to do. That's all I thought I was good at. I didn't think I had any other options. So my family supported me. I think they also thought, that's it. That is her calling. That's what's going to happen for her. And I made a lot of it happen for myself, but there was no question. There was no question of, am I going to be a singer? Am I going to release CDs? Am I going to perform?
So it was just, you just knew at a very young age, you just knew, because like I was in chorus and it wasn't, and I was in plays and stuff, and it just wasn't going to happen for me.
Well, I wanted to be, I thought I wanted to go to New York and be on Broadway, but the problem was I didn't dance, and I was terrified of memorizing lines to speak. So I was always in the pit orchestra for these plays. And really, I think I wanted to go to New York because I wanted to get out of Des Moines, Iowa. And New York was the place growing up that you would land if you were a successful musician. Okay. But things worked out, and I went to the other coast, to San Francisco, which is not really the Hollywood Mecca, right? I should have gone a little further south, but San Francisco did me right. I was able to carve out my own niche, carve out my own world, oh gosh, this word is not great. It's going to happen. I'm going to say it. Be a celebrity in this smaller niche. And, I had some market share, and I had a lot of great fans and great supporters. And that, just kept up leveling and catapulted me into so many places that I never expected to go.
Now you said something interesting. You said you made a lot of it happen for yourself, and I know we'll talk a lot about your company and what you're doing. We're obviously going to talk about your book that you have coming out as well. But it's an interesting thing what you said is you made it, you happen yourself. People always say, "Oh, I'm a self-made person," or something. We always get a little bit of help there, but at the end of the day, you got to make it happen yourself. So in this, I have friends that are musicians that's how they make a living, but they barely get by. And they're crazy talented, but it's just it's so competitive. So tell me a little bit about the struggle during that time too, when you're first coming up, like, what are the things that you had to do? I mean, because I think we've talked about this, I did stand-up comedy for years. It was like open mics. Anytime there was an open mic, we would go, but where do you go? Like, how do you start? Like, who do you go to as someone who, I mean, I know since you were little, you were kind of in those circles, but where does someone start, I guess?
I started by reading Acoustic Guitar Magazine and Donald Passman's book. He's an attorney in the music industry. And I learned so much about the music industry, the legal aspects. But then I read a book about house concerts, I think. And there was a passage in there about creating your own concert series to propel your own career forward. And I absolutely did that. So in about year 2000, 2001, I decided to start a concert series in Alameda, which is this little island that I lived on, actually live across from there now. And I ended up getting 200 to 300 people to come to a concert, pay a fee every month. It was called First Saturdays in Alameda. I hate titles that aren't really incredible, but I knew that I had to have something sticky where people didn't have to say where and when. So I didn't put myself up as the performer every month. I had an opener, like as people were coming in, like someone that played as people were coming in. Then I had a real opener, and then I had a headliner. And sometimes that headliner would be me, like every 2 or 3 months, actually every 3 months. And it was brilliant. It taught me so much. I learned how to run cables, how to do sound, how to mix sound, how to organize a group of volunteers to help set up everything, how to serve wine on the DL, how to serve wine by getting a license, like, and then how to get word of mouth going, and just create irrational loyalty around this concert series. And at the time, my daughter was 5, and there were a lot of parents and kids. And what do families do on the weekends? There's baseball and soccer practice, but for entertainment, there's not much to do, right? As a family, maybe go to a rated G movie. But now there was something for them to do, and they loved it.
It's a beautiful thing when what you described too is, as two entrepreneurs. That was like it's maybe it wasn't really the beginning of your entrepreneurial world, but you were running a business then. Like you said, you're learning how to run cables, you're learning how to mix, you're learning how to market, you're learning how to create sales, you're learning how to put butts in the seats, like you're
corporate sponsorship too. Somebody brought to me a corporate sponsor, and I was terrified. I was like, I'm not that mature, I'm not that sophisticated, I'm not sure am I going to really honor them? But I took the money and I did honor them.
So how does that, so when was your first album, so to speak? Like, when did that happen? Tell me a little bit about that process.
It was 2001, and I had written like 10 or 11 songs, and I had to put it out. And I wanted to learn all of how you put together an album. So I used this not only as my first debut album, but as a learning curve to learn. It's different, doing a recording than you do a live performance, and the way you record and sound isolation and all the patches and the chords and the fixing in the mix and punching in, like all of these things. I wanted to know everything, not because I wanted to become a producer, become a recording engineer, but I wanted to be excellent at and very knowledgeable at what I did. And I'm so glad I did, because I then recorded 7 CDs of my own, produced a couple for other people, and now I can have a conversation with any recording engineer, any producer in the music industry. I can talk their talk and I understand what's going on. I love that. So interestingly enough, I had finished the album, finished writing everything, and then September 11th happened. And I'm all the way over here in the Bay Area, but I have I have a daughter who's like 5, and I'm terrified. And because I was very like a highly emotional person back then, more than I am now, I wrote and performed in order to express myself. And I wrote a song, which is on the record. We did it last minute. We snuck it in there, and it's called September 11th, 2001. It's has a bagpipes, and it's a song sung by a fictional boy whose father is lost in the towers. And I couldn't let the album go without getting that song on there. So, it's a special record for me in the first place, but being able to express how I was feeling during September 11th is really important too.
And, so here we are today, years later, 20 years later, right?
Yeah.
And music still plays a part in your life. I know that you still perform, but I wanted to just ask you, you mentioned earlier, you said, again, we use the term, you were kind of reluctant to use the term celebrity, but as authors, I want to be a New York Times bestselling author. I'm not there yet, but I've done some great things with the book. And so that's like the pinnacle of success in that world. Right. In music, I'm guessing, winning Grammys or platinum albums and things like that. So, tell me a little bit like about those aspirations and not getting there, so to speak, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like what that feels like, because I think, again, I think sometimes people, like if you didn't get there, they might feel like, well, it was a failure, but when in fact it really wasn't, because it's still a part of the journey. Tell me a little bit about that, because again, I just have other friends that have done some things and you think, oh man, like this is it. Like they're going to break through. Like I had a friend sign with Sony and was like, oh man, like that's it. Like he's going to be the next thing. And he just didn't. So I just like the competitive nature. Yeah.
So my goal was to win a Grammy. That would have been the epitome. I belong to NARIS, which is the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences. I'm a voting member, so I get to vote on the Grammys every year. I used to go every year. And then I realized that the Grammys aren't exactly what you think they are.
Sure.
So it's an incredible show, but it's heavily pay to play, right?
Right.
And I was so naive. I just didn't get it. And when I saw what was probably happening, I was like, oh, not important to me. Not important to me. So what was important to me was the stages that I was getting on, Yoshi's, Monterey Jazz Festival, performing for Clint Eastwood, 5 feet away from me for an hour, and having him be so into the music was, I think I appreciate the small wins even more so than the big, big, big ones. So I'm just like happy all the time. I'll come home and go to my daughter, Bennett, guess what? She's like, yeah, mom. Okay, great. Good for you. But what I'm doing is building up an arsenal of good vibes and good feelings with small wins so that I'm not disappointed if there isn't a Grammy Award.
But for you too, right? And you can just tell from just listening to you speak, and if you're watching right now, you can just tell by looking at you, even though I have sunglasses on. There's a real love and passion for just music in general, right? And so
music and art, yeah. I mean, and obviously, we're probably getting this. You're probably leading me to this, but because I thought I was always going to be a musician. And not to say musicians aren't entrepreneurs, they kind of have to be, but I had no idea that I would be the owner, founder of a profitable multi-million-dollar business, putting artists and musicians to work.
Right.
Like if somebody would have told me that in high school, there's no way I would have believed that.
Isn't that the interesting thing too? You hear it all the time where the business today is not what it's going to be tomorrow, right? So is that kind of like what happened with you?
Well, what happened was I was playing for so many events at an early age. So 15, 16, I was making money performing. And oh man, was that intoxicating, right?
Bet.
Like for me, those hits of adrenaline, $300 for an hour here, that was a lot of money back then.
Wasn't also like the big hit to being on stage itself? Like I remember, I've been to a ton of concerts and I'm a big U2 fan. And I remember being there and just seeing Bono on stage, this is a couple of years ago. So, they've been at it for a long time, and we're in Boston Garden or whatever. And there's, 20,000 people there. And like that, like there are only a few people in the world that can ever experience that. But I think it's probably the same thing if you have 300 people on the stage. You have to, it's the same chemical reaction, right?
Well, listen, I've performed for 300 to 400 people regularly.
Right.
And then I've done the national anthem for 40,000 people. So
That's
I've
nuts.
experienced both, but I would say like, yes. So one of my first gigs at Yoshi's, which is kind of the Carnegie Hall of Jazz in the West Coast, we had a lot of coverage. We had a lot of press. And if somebody writes about you in an editorial way, you get a lot more focus than if it's a blurb or a calendar entry. I get more people coming to a concert if I'm written about in editorial form rather than being like, my whole face has been on the pink pages of the San Francisco Chronicle, and that doesn't pull as much. But anyway, so I get to Yoshi's and there's 2 shows that night, 8 and 10. My dad is there. I've I have to sell, I think 400 tickets to sell out. And my dad came backstage. I was nervous, so nervous. And he's like, Tosh, It's raining outside and there's a line around the block to get in. I'm like, to get in where? Like, what are you talking about? It's like, to get in here. Your show is sold out. And they were turning away like friends and family that didn't pre-buy tickets.
Wow.
Now I started feeling the pressure of, oh shit. Like I had to take care of those people, but they could come back at the 10 o'clock show. So it didn't quite ruin everything, but that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. I want to talk in a second about, again, how that career transitioned into your company, Entire Productions, and what you've been doing. And also, I know that you're working on a book as well. Folks, we've been on with Natasha Miller. If you heard her speak, we've talked a little bit about the beginnings of her career. We're going to talk next about her entrepreneurial journey. We heard a little bit about how she started out as a musician turned entrepreneur, just building, her own kind of community. You hear about, people like Sylvester Stallone, and everyone said, no. So he just did a movie himself. So it sounds like she kind of did the same thing. If you'd like some more information about Natasha, you can just go to natashamiller.co, but you can also check out her company, entireproductions.com, which we're going to talk a little bit about. If you want to check out what she's doing on Instagram, it's Natasha Miller SF. As well. She responds to any sort of questions you may have. So again, check her out. I know she has a book as well, and it'll probably be available on her website, natashamiller.co. Report. I want to tell you about a company and a service that I believe can take your company to the next level. And that company is Penji, Penji. Penji is an unlimited design service that connects you with the top 2% of graphic designers in the world. You can get creative output like as if you had an internal team, but without that additional overhead cost. Look, if you want things like logos to flyers to digital art, even UX and UI, Penji is the company for you. I know because I've used them. Look, if you're the person within your company that's doing all the graphic design work, or maybe you even have a team and you're overwhelmed and you want to outsource it to a company that you know you can trust. Look, we know all these other services out there. Penji is like no other graphic design service that I've ever seen, and I've used them, and I highly recommend going to Penji.co. Because you're a listener and a subscriber of the Alden Report, you can actually get 15% off of your first month with Penji. It's really, really simple. Go to Penji.co, enter in the code Alden15, and you'll get 15% off of your first month. Listen, if you want things like logos, custom illustrations, even a website, and you want it all under one plan that's not going to lock you in forever, then visit Penji.co, and when you sign up, make sure you enter the code Alden15. Once you submit your order, it's really, really simple. Here's the thing. They get your custom designs back to you within 48 hours or less. So go on and visit Penji.co and enter in the code Alden15. That's Penji.co and enter in the code Alden15. So we start out as a musician. You're still a musician. It's still in your blood. You're still doing it. I know I don't know if you've already done it, but I know that you're doing the national anthem here and there. You're way for it in front of like huge crowds, like you mentioned earlier. And so now you start this production company that Entire Productions that has worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, Salesforce.com, Google, I believe, and the list goes on and on. You've been recognized in Inc. magazine. You didn't come from that background. I don't believe you majored in that in college. Tell us about the genesis of that, like how that happened. What was your first event like, and how did you become the kind of the go-to company, not only in your area, but literally all over the country?
So I was getting double and triple booked as a musician, as both a violinist and a singer, and I could not turn work away. And that's another part of the story, and that's in the book. But I've been on my own since I was 16, and I had to take everything that was coming to me. So if you were to book me on a night that I'd already signed a contract with someone else, I'd say, hey, Mike, thank you so much for wanting me to perform. I would love to do it, but I'm already booked. So I'm going to bring in another group that's as good as me and actually probably better, and I'll manage them. So you will have a great experience at your event. So I was doing this 2, 4, 5, 6. I had maybe sometimes 6 or 7 gigs in one night with other musicians out. And this was before I had a business license and paid, the IRS. And I did have a job in media buying and advertising as my day job, but I was driving all over the Bay Area. Sometimes one day I performed actually 4 times on a Saturday myself. So 3 weddings with my string quartet. Then I landed at Treasure Island with my string quartet. I put up all the speakers, the stands, the 50-pound, cases and the mixing board. And I came home and I was like, oh my God, I think I'm going to die. My dad's like, why are you doing all that? And I'm like, I have to. And he was like, I don't think you do. So at that point, I kind of peeled back and stopped playing all the violin string quartet gigs. And I just started mushrooming. And then in 2001, same year I did my CD, I officially started Entire Productions. And I got my first big client, which was Shorenstein Realty. They have a big plaza called Oakland City Center. That was $100,000 a year contract where I programmed bands to play on their plaza stage on Wednesdays from 12 to 1, so that everyone from the 5 major buildings, the 10,000 people that work there, would come out to watch these shows so they'd spend money in the plaza at lunch.
Wow.
I still have that client to today.
That's pretty awesome. I was thinking about what you were saying too, and you know this as well. I have a couple small businesses where you've seen it. I have on my Instagram. I put a backpack on. I'm out there hitting the streets and I'm going to trade shows and doing these things.
Wicked happy.
That's right. So I think a lot of people don't realize that with businesses that the founders are the ones that are doing that stuff. Let me ask you about your psyche when you're the one, you're doing all this stuff, like you're setting up. So you're the performer in this one, right? But yet you're popping up the speakers and running cables and making sure the mixing board is, you're doing all this other stuff. What does that feel like? Do you say to yourself as it's happening, like, are you kind of embarrassed or do you feel like, man, I shouldn't be doing this? Or what are you thinking about when
I
you're
felt
doing
like
that?
Superwoman. People were like, you are one tough chick. You're amazing. And I ate that up until it started to wear on me physically and mentally. And when I got to the point of realizing I can get somebody else to do some of these things, but I'm so glad I got the experience that I did in doing it all, because I understand now. If I'm at a concert right now and I can tell the levels are off or it's too hot, I can go right up to the sound engineer and I know exactly what to say in his language because I've done all the stuff. But now Inc. magazine writes about me being a super delegator. So I'm not doing all the things. I learn about all the things to a certain extent so that I can have a really great conversation with the pros and be able to manage that.
Do you feel like it's a necessary skill set or that most entrepreneurs should develop as far as being able to learn almost every aspect of their business so that they can ask the right questions and grow? Now, I know that you also work with companies as well. So if you do want some more information about Natasha about that, you want to work with her. I know that you do take on a small amount of clients as well. You go to natashamiller.co. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I really think if you're a new entrepreneur or an entrepreneur that has an established business that's going to start to scale and grow, you do need to understand the basics and the foundation of every element of business. You do not have to be an expert. You do not have to be an accountant, CPA, but you do have to understand how to read and interpret and use the data from your financial reports, for instance, to propel your company, to have a good conversation with your CFO, to be able to tell a bank why they should fund you. Now, I did not know any of that up until at 1 million in revenue. I didn't know.
Right.
And you can do it by gut instinct and by feeling around for a while. There is a point where it's going to be really bad for your business if you don't understand the rudiments and the basics of how business works.
And, so I know one of the things that's also made you successful is you surround yourself or you get connected with, other people that are from different industries, but also that are like-minded with you. What are your thoughts on connecting with other entrepreneurs or mentors? Did you do that? Did you reach out to other people when you were first starting? Because, I was talking to someone earlier, if you don't know, you don't know.
Exactly. I didn't know. I was cocky. I thought that I was impressing everyone with doing this by myself and succeeding. I did have success. Did I have the amount of success faster if I had mentors and advisors and access to education? Yeah, I would have shot up a lot faster. So now what I say to people is, when you're just starting out, find mentors, ask the questions, pay an advisor. Don't pay an advisor. There's a lot that are free. Read up, take a class. If I had known what I started to learn in just 2015, when I did the Goldman Sachs 10KSB program, then I did Scale Smarter Partners, Scale and Surge and Grow. My company started to grow 65% year over year. Then I'm doing the Entrepreneurial Masters program at MIT through Entrepreneurs Organization. And I did a stint at Harvard. Wow, like my world opened wide up. I was thinking smaller than I needed to. I didn't have the tools and the ideas of people that have gone before. So now I'm emulating and then, taking what has worked, and then I can do a little bit of the improvisation after that. Man, I wish I had that. I mean, I could have been fledgling from the first 5 years. That's okay. But I took a lot longer to get there.
Yeah. What's the saying? Success can be duplicated, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, most of my businesses, anything I do, I'm looking at my competition. I want to do better than what they're doing great. And I want to not do any of the things that they're doing that is sucking. And for entire productions, I really believe that way of chiseling, carving out our niche, it worked for us. I looked at all the competitors, they're 10 to 15 years older than me. And I was like, okay, their websites suck. That navigation sucks. How is anyone going to find that? Let's make it responsive. Let's make it really, like, if you go to Entire Productions, it'll blow you away. There's a lot going on up there, but for trade shows, that exactly what you're going to get if you engage with us.
In a second, I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of where you're heading right now, which is systems. I know that it's like your thing. It's not my thing. I am kind of the guy that does, fly by the seat of his pants sometimes. But I want to talk about systems, why they're important, and how they can help scale your business in a second. Folks, we've been on with Natasha Miller. You heard her speak. She is a rock star entrepreneur. She's been in Inc. magazine. Her company's been recognized multiple years by Inc. magazine. She's a singer-songwriter. Her company generates millions and millions of dollars. And she's also made it through one of the most difficult years of recent history with a company that still exists today, and it's still continuing to grow. She's worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, huge multinational corporations come and work for her. So if you'd like some more information about her company, you can go to entireproductions.com. You can also go to natashamiller.co. You can check her out on Instagram as well at Natasha Miller SF as well. So if you'd like some more information, visit those websites. It'll also be in the show notes as well. So let's talk about systems and why they're important. You and I had a conversation once. I actually remember exactly what I was doing. I was driving because I drive a lot. And you were talking about what makes your company great is your ability to systematize things that maybe others might not even think could even be done. So tell me a little bit about the importance of systems in your business and just in business in general.
I think that another reason why why Entire Productions is so successful is that I understood in about 2013 that we were doing things in a repetitive way. We were doing triple and quadruple entry. And so I started creating a system and a process where we wrote down everything that we did so that I can train everyone, but also we have a system, and this is the easiest way I can explain it. Like, who cares about systems and processes? I'll tell you how to care. We did 777 events in 1 year with 2 human beings in operations.
Wow.
You can't do that without a system and process that works. So we automate every single repetitive and low touch thing. So our system churns. Even if we're out, this is what I used to say, if me and my team went to the Bermuda Triangle and was lost forever, but your event was in our system already, everything's going to happen, because at every cadence point, there's a triggering automatic trigger that alerts the right people at the right time of where to go, where not to go, who to talk to, who not to talk to, and the event happens. It's
now,
amazing.
did you build that yourself, or
Yeah.
was it yourself, or was it a combination of your team? How long did it take? How often also do you look at it and say, we need to take a fresh look at this? Can we update it?
I love it. Thank you for asking the questions that I would love to answer. So I used a consultant when I first started, and I was so, again, naive. I didn't know how my business would scale and grow. I didn't care. It was a lifestyle business. I was, doing my own performing at the time. So that was the priority. But I did end up building a system within Salesforce that Salesforce themselves says that's not what we use this for. And you use our software in a much more sophisticated way than we even do internally. And so they've had me speak at Dreamforce, their 200,000 person conference, to show how small businesses could use Salesforce. So it's a CRM, but I use it to run my business from A to Z. I do insist that my employees let me know anytime that they're working where they're like, oh, why do I have to do this? Or, oh, I wish ... And they used to say, oh, we don't want to tell you because we know it'll cost money to program. I'm like, you have to tell me. We can't afford not to know about these stopgaps. And if we can afford it, and if it does make sense, we can't afford not to do it. So
Right.
It is now crowd-based, it's team-based, and we take information from our vendors and our talent and our clients too. If they don't enjoy what they're experiencing, we ask them why, and then we fix it. And to answer your last question, we tweak our system anytime there's an opportunity to tweak it. So it's always getting better.
Yeah, I think there's real value in that, in the kind of like the virtual version of like an open door policy, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs, I learned this early on, that I truly had an open door policy. I mean, sometimes I wouldn't want people walking in my office when we actually kind of had offices, right? But there is real value in listening to the people that are on the front lines, right? And your customers, because like we said earlier, you don't know if you don't know, and it's hard to step back and look at it objectively unless you have people that are telling you, right? And so I think, maybe can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. One of our artists was getting triggered, and that's what we call within the system. We ask them if they're available for a certain date and time because our client is interested in them or we've pitched them. And some particular talent, we might have 30 requests for proposals out for them. That's a lot, right? That's a lot of juggling. That's a lot of soft holds. So somebody had asked us, hey, it would be really nice if when you triggered us and we said, yes, we're available, and this all goes right into the system. So I don't have to say, okay, John is available. Like the system absorbs it. They wanted a number, an identifying number. This one person did, so that they could tell, where they were within the RFP system. That never occurred to me. I wasn't thinking as the artist and as the recipient of all these requests. So I measured how many people were asking me for that and how much it would cost to improve the system. And at that time he asked, it wasn't important because no one was asking.
Right.
But as people started asking a little bit more, then we implemented it.
Do you use more than one CRM or other like service providers? Because you'd mentioned Salesforce. We've at our company, we actually built our own custom CRM, which we thought was great. And it was great, but what got you here won't get you there. So do you use more than one, or is it just really kind of Salesforce driven?
Yeah, it's Salesforce driven. We do use other tools that have actually been absorbed by or bought by Salesforce. So Slack, that's not really our CRM, but these are plugins that go into Salesforce. But this system and process doesn't have to be built in Salesforce. It can be built in Zoho, and it could be built in HubSpot if they allow. Salesforce is saying to me, our system doesn't do that. I'm like, oh, yes, it actually does. And I'll show you how. This is the workaround. This is how. And they actually call me an app developer. They introduced me as an app developer. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not an app developer. I'm not an engineer. Like, please, I hope they don't think I am. They're like, no, you are. Your ideas and how you're creating the system within this system, you're an app developer. And I'm like, okay. I would never say, hi, I'm Natasha Miller, and I'm an app developer.
They should be paying you some sort of, consultant fee for all the upgrades you've made.
They treat me very well.
So I know we don't have a ton of time, but I want to talk a little bit about your book. So you've written this book. It's been a journey for you, and like everything else you've done, we've talked a lot offline about this. You're interviewing people, you are learning about the process, you're refining the process. But tell me a little bit about your book. We have a ton of entrepreneurs that listen to the Alden Report. I know your book is kind of like a compilation of like your story, but also the entrepreneurial kind of guide, so to speak. Tell me about the book. I don't even know if we have a title yet, but if someone does eventually pick up the book, they're going to go to natashamiller.co. It'll probably be available by the time this airs. What's the book about, and how can people benefit from it?
I'm going to tell you the working title, and also tell everyone that I believe that figuring out the best title for your book is one of the hardest things. Writing it, not as hard. The working title, which will not be on the book, but it gives you an idea of what the book is Relentless Tenacity, My Journey from a Homeless Shelter to the Inc. 5000. The book is a memoir. It's a business memoir. I can't really separate my business endeavors from my life story. My entrepreneurial journey basically started at about age 15. So the book walks through all these very extreme inflection points, very high to very low and back and forth. About 10 years ago, those inflection points started dying down because I decided I can identify, when I'm going to be entering an inflection point that might be throwing me into the lower feeling. And I don't want to feel that way.
Sure.
Some of my inflection points, you can't really avoid.
Right.
You can't make the choices to avoid them, but I'm so excited about the book. It's so well written. And I can say that because I wrote the words, but I hired an incredible editor who just brought my story to life. And I'll give you an example of how good it's written. The story is good, but the writing is great. I gave it to one of my trusted readers, and she is a VP of communications at a very big company, busy. And it was right before the 4th of July. And she said, thank you, Natasha. I got the manuscript. I can't wait to take it on my vacation. So what she's saying to me is, I got your book. I'm not going to read it now. I'll talk to you next week. Right. Which is fine. I didn't expect anything different from that. I get an email from her a couple of hours later, and she's like, oh my God, I read the first sentence and then I had to read the first page, which of course made me read the whole first chapter. I have work to do. I can't read this book right now. I'm like, okay, I'm not asking you to. Then I go to bed, and the next morning I get up at 6 or 7 a.m. and there's another email from her at midnight. She's like, I couldn't put the book down. I read the entire thing. And the first page of what she wrote as feedback was all positive. Excuse me. But that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for critical analysis. And then she gave me that in the second page, and it was amazing.
That's a great feeling, right? When you get that positive feedback on something that you put your heart and soul into. And, that's, by the way, I like the title. So I like the title. I even like the subtitle. So, listen, before we let you go, as an entrepreneur, as a female entrepreneur, who has, really literally climbed the ranks and built a great company, do you have any last thoughts for our viewers and listeners that are entrepreneurs themselves? Maybe some things some advice like, hey, maybe, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have known that. Like earlier, you had said, man, I wish I would have maybe taken some of these courses earlier. Is there something you're like, hey, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to scale your business or whatever, you should do this?
Yeah. I would say if you're an entrepreneur, it's okay to do some by yourself and feel spunky and independent. But when you are ready to get really serious, you have to understand the foundations and the basics. They don't change from industry to industry. And there's so much access to information, to training. I would love to be a part of that journey with you. If that's the way you want to go, I can also refer you to a million different other entities. But my daughter is thinking about doing an entrepreneurial endeavor. And I know she has such a leg up from having grown up with me. And I talk about my business out loud. She didn't seem to care. She wasn't interested, but it's in her brain.
She's listening.
She's got a leg up. And last night I was talking to her and I was like, listen, if you go into this endeavor, you're going to be so way ahead of everybody else because of what you've learned, but also, you have to learn. You can't just like wing it.
Yeah. I love it. And you're right. There is so much information that's out there. Sometimes you got to sift through some of the crap, but listen, if you'd like some more information about Natasha, she mentioned it earlier. If you want to learn from her, I mean, her experiences are amazing. I mean, she's been recognized again. She's been in Wall Street Journal. She's USA Today. Inc. magazine has recognized her. Her company has generated millions of dollars, and she built it literally from the ground up. You're at Salesforce. Salesforce refers to her on how to use their own system, a multi-billion-dollar company. They actually refer to her and to some of the things and the upgrades that she's done. Again, if you'd like some more information about Natasha, you can just go to natashamiller.co. And also, listen, if you're a company and you want to put on a production, whatever it is, okay. If you even have a wedding, she does that as well. Check out her company, entireproductions.com. She threw on the sunglasses. I was going to take mine off. She threw on our sunglasses for me as well. She's just, listen, we met on this app called Clubhouse and we talked about it earlier. She's an all-around just great person. She's doing great things. And the other part about the Alden Report, what we've done before, is she's a real entrepreneur. She's doing real things. She's helping real people. She's employing real people, and she continues to do it even through some of the most difficult times, again, in recent history. So again, if you'd like some more information about Natasha, visit natashamiller.co. Check her out on Instagram at natashamillersf, and also check out her company, entireproductions.com. My name is Mike Alden. That's Natasha Miller with the glasses, and we'll see you soon. I want to tell you about a company and a service that I believe can take your company to the next level. And that company is Penji, P-E-N-J-I. Penji is an unlimited design service that connects you with the top 2% of graphic designers in the world. You can get creative output like as if you had an internal team, but without that additional overhead cost. Look, if you want things like logos to flyers to digital art, even UX and UI, Penji is the company for you. I know because I've used them. Look, if you're the person within your company that's doing all the graphic design work, or maybe you even have a team and you're overwhelmed and you want to outsource it to a company that you know you can trust. Look, we know all these other services out there. Penji is like no other graphic design service that I've ever seen, and I've used them, and I highly recommend going to Penji.co. Because you're a listener and a subscriber of the Alden Report, you can actually get 15% off of your first month with Penji. It's really, really simple. Go to Penji.co, enter in the code Alden15, and you'll get 15% off of your first month. Listen, if you want things like logos, custom illustrations, even a website, and you want it all under one plan that's not gonna lock you in forever, then visit Penji.co, and when you sign up, make sure you enter the code Alden15. 15. Once you submit your order, it's really, really simple. Here's the thing. They get your custom designs back to you within 48 hours or less. So go on and visit penji.co and enter in the code Alden15. That's penji.co and enter in the code Alden15.